All right, so next book. This next one is a book of great advice, and I think it was packaged in a very good way to like help you understand it because it's mostly through narrative. But it's Mike Rowe's book, The Way I Heard It. Here's the cover. Um, but yeah, so why you should read this book to start off with, right? And so it's pretty much full of a whole bunch of like important life lessons and stuff. But he explains it through narrative, right? The way he heard it, right? It's actually kind of a, I guess you could say simply put, but executed well, if that makes any sense, right? And so also because a lot of the stuff it's not esoteric. I mean, he uses some good, rather out there diction, I'll say, but most of it's at times to where that it's kind of punny, I guess, to where it's more of a joke side of thing. But anyways, so who is Mike Rowe? If you guys don't already know him, he's pretty famous. So he's the executive producer of Dirty Jobs, which is something I grew up on. So it was kind of nice to see him get a book. And he also has the Micro Works Foundation, which from my understanding is kind of like helps show that, like younger people and young adults that blue collar work is an option, right? It's not to be frowned upon in the slightest. And from personal experience, because I have kind of done both, to where I worked at in the physics department I went to school at for college, but then after that I also started surveying, something that I talked a bit about. And I look back on my days on like survey crews rather fondly, in all honesty. And some of the brightest people I've ever met were blue collars. So, and I don't say that lightly in the slightest. But this book was published in 2019, a few years ago, and it's only 251 pages. Like it's not extensive, and like you could probably read this in a day or two if you really wanted to. And it actually does move really nice. Like it's easy to read through it. Like it's just a nice read in general. But pretty much it is a compilation of a bunch of short stories in a way with lessons at the end, right? And some of them connect, some of them don't. Some of them involve him personally, and some of his background and stories. But some of the stuff that you pop up in here and find is, to quote, "You're only as good as the man next to you," was one of the first stories that he had. And that was from page 6. I forget which exactly one it is. Believe it was the one. I'm not going to go too far into the actual stories themselves. That's why you should get the book. Like I said, it's a good read. Next one. So he gave a story of himself coming clean about his own ignorance on what he was trying to sell. So like there was one point, I forget. He was kind of like one of those late night TV salesmen. So like whenever you get on when you turn on the television, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, and there's people trying to sell like the I don't know what the term is, but kind of off the wall things that like you see it like in the corner of Walmart if you go in. It's like as seen on TV, and it's real kind of like, I don't know, real life clickbaity. Who's trying to sell those, and he came clean about like how he doesn't know anything about these things. They kind of just hand it to him, and he has to sell it like improvised, right? Which I thought was kind of interesting. But he said he came clean. It was like, I don't know anything about this stuff, and instead of making stuff up, he actually had people who had experience like excuse me, who had like experience with that specific product, and they call on and help, and so like, and actually kind of help sell it for him. But like the lesson that he gave there was like, people tend to respect this kind of honesty, right? Especially if it's about your own ignorance. Not to say anything that's bad against him. It's more of a positive thing, to be honest. Another quote to bring up, he says, personally, I don't mind being corrected even when I'm right. It's nice to know that people are paying attention. So one, you can't take corrections too personally. I definitely got a lot of firsthand experience with that. One, while surveying, and two, in my latest career change. You get corrected a lot, and you can't take it personally at all. But he says it's nice to know that people are paying attention, right? And so someone has to be paying attention to you to be able to correct you, right? And so it's just kind of even if you're right and someone comes and corrects you, it shows that they're paying attention, right? And so that's kind of it's easier to remain positive, I guess, if you don't take things too personally, especially from strangers. Like, they don't know you, so who really cares? Anyways, next one. So while most of my friends in the industry were swinging for the fences, struggling to get that next big hit, he concentrated on singles that paid off in spades. And that's from page 171. I believe this was when he was talking more about his like acting career, and he was going further in depth than that. And he focused on like smaller jobs, not trying to get some big hit and make a bunch of money up first, but doing a lot of like kind of underhand pitches and slowly chipping away at it. And he said leading into, or not directly after that, but that really helped him gain what he said later is a financial portfolio of north of $1 million. And so like it instead of kind of trying to wait for that big hit, he really just kind of chipped away and ate small bites first, and was very successful because of it. Also, the last one, right? And this one was kind of hit more close to home, I think. So it's one of the last stories in his book, and the quote is, "It was the work, you see, work that would have seized had he taken the money, work that defined him even though he was approaching his 80th year, work that he was simply not ready to abandon," right? And so this is a big reason why I decided to change from surveying, for one. But his exact stories, and here where this quote comes from, was it was like a pig farmer that was somewhat near a town, and so a lot of the people in the town were trying to get the pig farmer to basically, sell his land, stop pig farming, and that sort of stuff, because of the smell and whatever other reasons they had, right? Even though I believe he did a lot of positive things for the community as well. It's just people just didn't want to deal with the smell anymore, and they were kind of just trying to screw him over because of that. But even though this dude was hella old, he still loved the physical labor of what he was doing. Like, he loved it. He needed to do it, right? He just wasn't, it's the act of doing the work, if that makes sense, that kind of gave him meaning. And that's one thing that I kind of realized a lot with what I've done so far. It's more of I gain more pleasure in actually doing the work, and don't really care so much about the money and stuff anymore. I did at first, especially right out of high school and so on, and then going into college, because I didn't have a lot. But now that I've made especially good financial decisions, I think for my age to where I'm fine. So even if things go wrong, I'm okay for a while, but not to take that lightly, but I've worked myself into the ground for a few years to get there. Not saying it's a lot, but you know, it's you start to gain a different perspective when you're okay, if that makes any sense. But yeah, one thing that I noticed just now, and I like to make my mistakes pop out and be honest about them, is I forgot to put a closer on this thing. So it's been a few months since since I've done any videos, for anyone who's been paying attention to my channel at all. There's a reason for that, and there's hints there, and I prefer not to talk a lot about the stuff that I do outside of this, because this is kind of a side thing and not really the point, I guess. But yeah, you can definitely figure it out if you look around the channel a bit more. There's hints, but yeah. Anyways, here's the book cover. I'll put a link to Amazon or whatever, so it's easier for you guys to find it, or you could just Google it yourself. As of the making of this video, I have no affiliate links or whatever. That might change in the future, but not at the moment, at least. But if you guys have any questions or comments, the whole point of me doing these is to really kind of provoke discussion and talk about it, because I don't claim to be an expert on any of this stuff. It's more of like kind of my own active learning and so on, and trying to put that more out in the open, because, you know, not just for it to be corrected, but it gives alternate perspectives that maybe I didn't think about before, and from people with different viewpoints, experiences, and so on. So you never really know what can pop up from these. Like, hell, at least as of right now, my channel's not very big at all, but still things have popped up from it that would surprise a lot of people, I guess, just from being more open about, I guess, about my own ignorance on topics, and kind of openly trying to understand that. But anyways, I'm going to leave this one here. So if you guys have any suggestions for other books or comments and so on about this one specifically or whatever, just, you know where the comment section is, and I try to answer those when I can. But anyways, I'm going to leave this one here. So I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you on the next one.